Hey guys, it's Cece, and welcome to a Harry Potter rereading vlog. In this vlog, I'm going to be rereading Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban. I am so excited to have you all follow me along as I read this book. This is where we're getting to the point where the books start to get a little bit longer, a little more complex. Prisoner of Azkaban is very highly ranked in terms of my feelings on the series. I'm wondering if this one's gonna shift upwards during this reread. Prisoner of Azkaban is also my favorite movie, so that probably also impacts it a little bit. But I love this book because it is all about getting to know the Marauders. Remus and Sirius are a couple of my favorite characters. I love that this is a book that isn't about Voldemort. I think that that's a real strength of Prisoner of Azkaban, that it's kind of taking a break and focusing on more characters, more backstory, necessary info for Harry. So yeah, hope that you are ready to join me in rereading this book. I'm excited. Ron calling Harry at the Dursleys' house and screaming into the phone is forever going to be the funniest moment in 7 books. The fact that he's just screaming. I love him so much. I feel like in the first 2 books we get a picture of the Golden Trio as kids and we start to get their personalities and what makes them friends, but this book for me is so much more about like the little things that make up their friendship, the little things that they all share, and how they're slowly becoming closer and closer. And my favorite example of this is when Harry gets his first ever birthday gifts, his first ever birthday cards on his 13th birthday. It's the first time he gets birthday cards. I'm already crying. I'm so upset. But Hermione and Ron are like making jokes about the same stuff and talking about things that they're all interested in, and they have all these little in-jokes and sweet moments, and it just makes me really soft inside. It makes me feel like a gooey cookie because it's so nice. It's just so nice is the thing. And the first 2 books are so simplistic because they were for little kids, and this is the moment when they start getting a little bit older, and that's why I like the later books so much more, because they're darker, but it also means that you get so much more depth with the characters and their development and their friendship, and it's so nice. It's so nice. I love it. I love that they're all friends forever. I love that Harry found friends. And I'm very happy to be reading this book. It's making me really happy because I love them so much. Honestly, Harry and Sirius deserve each other, if only for the fact that they're both the most dramatic people in the world. Like, I know it's a meme, Sirius is dramatic, but I'd like to say that Harry performs a bit of underage magic, and his immediate thought is, okay, well, how am I going to get to London to get my money so he could begin his life as an outcast? He's just immediately like, well, I guess I live a life on the run now. The drama of it all. I respect him. I get it. I really do. And I understand that 13-year-olds do not have the mental capabilities of full-grown adults, like, say, Sirius Black. And, you know, his dramatic antics are tied to his arrested development, possibly. Sirius did go to prison when he was 21 years old, so, you know, I was kind of an idiot at 21. I'm only 24 now. I'm still an idiot. And I was an idiot at 13, but I appreciate the reaction time that Harry went from, I can't wait to go back to Hogwarts, to, well, I'm a man on the run. How am I gonna make it work? Oh, and before we move on, God, the first chapter of this book is so fatphobic. It's honestly a little impossible to read. The number of times that Dudley is compared to a pig, and like Vernon and Dudley's multiple chins are described, or Marge is described because she's fat. Like, the amount of time that's spent focusing on the fact that those 3 characters are evil and their badness is tied into their weight is... it's a little agonizing to get through. It's really, really horrible.
if I saw the word piggy used one more time. It's just super gross. It's just super gross that these books tie weight so much into what makes a person good or not. And if a person is bad, then we have to make fun of their weight as much as possible because it's bad and evil to be fat. It's just really gross. And I don't like it one bit. So there's that as well. I think one of the main things that the movies get wrong about Ginny is that she is genuinely a very funny person. And I don't really know why everyone else in the Weasley family is allowed to have such an expressive personality when Ginny has that same expressive personality in the books. She just doesn't get to have it in the movies. The movies, I feel like they take away a lot of Ginny's agency. And that's kind of the problem, that we never really see anything between her and Harry, and we obviously don't see as much in the books, but we see a lot more of who Ginny is as a person, how comfortable she becomes with the group, with her own group of friends, and those are all things that are really important to establish that she is her own individual person. When you don't get any of that in the movies, and then all of a sudden they're dating, and Ginny has no personality, and they have that awkward, terrible first kiss, there's no reason why Harry and Ginny would be together. And I like Prisoner of Azkaban because you start to immediately see Ginny's personality, where in the first one, she's a quiet, shy person because A, she's dealing with a crush, which she's probably never really had to deal with before, and B, she's being slowly taken over by an evil force that has befuddled most of the wizarding community, and she's only 11 years old. So, like, of course, she becomes a completely different person in Chamber of Secrets because there is more weight on her in that book than most of the other characters ever experience, save for Harry, which Ginny calls him out on later on, very rightfully so. But like in this book, it's immediately apparent that Ginny is very talkative. She's funny. She, bites back when people are mean, especially when Ron is mean to her. Like when Harry is like, I need to talk to you, and Ron says, hey, Ginny, clear off, and she goes, oh, well, that's nice. You know, she's not this contained, quiet person. She's grown up with Fred and George. You know, she shares jokes with Harry. I think that those are all very important things about Ginny that you don't get to see because they didn't bother including her in the movies until it was kind of too late to establish who she was as a person. And I think that that is really unfortunate because I really love Ginny. I know some people don't. I think Ginny is absolutely fantastic, and it's a real shame that we didn't get as much of her actual personality or any personality at all in the movies, because they had like a lot to work with, and I'm just grumpy about it, is all I'm saying.
Remus Lupin makes me so sad. I am so sad. Reading this book has reminded me why he was my favorite character for so many years. I think he can't be my favorite character because he's like too tragic and I get too upset about it. But like, do you ever think about the fact that the first time Lupin sees Harry, a boy who should have grown up being like, Uncle Mooney, you're the person who's part of my family. Harry has no idea who he is, and he has to go through life being called Professor Lupin, and he can't tell Harry because he doesn't feel right telling him that he was his father's friend through school, and they're this boy who looks exactly like his friend who died so many years ago. He is lonely, he is alone, and I'm upset about it. And I remain upset about the fact that Lupin has this very, very old briefcase that has Professor R.J. Lupin on it, right? But the suitcase is really old, the briefcase, whatever. It's really old and the letters are peeling, which means it was given to him a long time ago, so I can only assume that it was a gift from James or Sirius or Peter, and he's just had it all this time, and now he's using it, but at the time that he's using it, he thinks two of his friends are dead, and one of them is the reason the other two were dead, and that's only somewhat true. The tragic life of Remus Lupin will keep me awake to the end of my days. I am so upset by every single part of it. It is
Also, he's, like, the only good professor of, like, Defense Against the Dark Arts that they ever had. Like, Moody was okay, but what does it say that the second best Defense Against the Dark Arts teacher that they ever had was actually working for Voldemort? He was such a good professor. And he wasn't allowed to teach children because of prejudice, because he's queer-coded, until J.K. Rowling was like, oh, fuck, I queer-coded him. We gotta back out.
You know who's a massive asshole? No, you know what? This needs to be done more professionally. You know who's a massive asshole? Severus Snape. I'm not pausing. I'm not asking for votes. I'm not asking for a raise of hands. You know who's an asshole? Severus Snape. That's the answer. That's the solution. In a multiple choice question, answer A, Snape. Answer B, Severus. Answer C, the Half-Blood Prince. Answer D, all of the above. It's D. Fuck Snape. Fuck him. This man holds, you know, he has a vendetta against a 13-year-old, which is already embarrassing. If you're a 30-year-old person and you have a serious vendetta against a 13-year-old, you know, not 30, he's in his 30s, but, like, you know, really think about that. Think about that. Because let me tell you what, as a person who's 24, I do not have any nemeses who are children, because that would be fucking stupid of me. And Severus Snape is like, let's see, what can I do in this position of power that I've been given? Very luckily, I was forgiven for the many crimes that I've committed, so what can I do with the second chance? I think I'm gonna bully children. I think that's what I'm gonna do, for sure. I'm gonna bully children. And when I have a student who's bad in my class, instead of helping them, instead of supporting them, I'm gonna make fun of them openly. I'm gonna take advantage of the chance to walk into other professors' classrooms and be like, you know who's stupid? This 13-year-old. Like, I'm gonna start. Is he 13 too? And then when a student is bad and is really stressed and is unsure, I'm gonna threaten his pet. I'm talking about Neville Longbottom. Snape is literally like, Neville, if you don't get your shit together, I'm gonna feed whatever poison you've made to your toad and he's gonna die. And how are you gonna feel about that? Isn't that gonna be great for you? And then it's not even a threat. He literally does that. And when the potion doesn't kill a student's pet, he's like 5 points from Gryffindor because you made it right. You little bitches, I am so superior to you. Ho ho ho, here I am, an adult, holding this over your eye. This fucking man. I hate him. And, like, this is not even getting into what he's going to do to Lupin. Like, he has a grudge against Lupin, and that's way more, like, grounded in some kind of reality that isn't royally fucked up. So, you know, like, he doesn't like Lupin because Lupin was friends with his bully in school. Totally fair. But Snape's actions in this book cause serious repercussions for werewolves as an entire species. Because Snape doesn't care about anyone but himself. And people who are like, oh, but he redeemed... No. Snape doesn't give a shit about anyone but himself, and that is true until his last moments, because all he wants out of Harry is to finally be like, you know, I've always loved Lily, it was all for her. You greasebag, you dumb shit. No, it was for you and your ego. Okay, I've calmed down. We'll be returning to this rant later, I promise. In another edition of Ron is Usually Right, when they're in their very first divination class, Ron is looking at Harry's teacup and he says, there's a blob a bit like a bowler hat. Maybe you're going to work for the Ministry of Magic. And I'd just like to say, like, 100% right. That's absolutely accurate, Ron. You have... I think that Ron is secretly the best at divination, and, like, it's just because he doesn't know that he's constantly right, that he's unaware that he's really, really good at divination. I think he's secretly
a masterclass. He's like an oracle. He just always says the dumbest thing possible, and then it happens to be right because that's how life be.
Also, can we talk about how Dumbledore's really, really bad at running a school? I don't understand. I don't understand his hiring decisions. Like, okay, some people are bad at their jobs, but they're good people. Trelawney, bad at her job, but deserves a home. Hagrid, great dude, bad at teaching. Fine. Don't know that we should still be letting them teach, but at least there's a reason. But like, J.K. Rowling has literally said that Dumbledore thought Gilderoy was taking credit for things that his friends had done, and so we brought Gilderoy in so that he could expose him, which is like, dude, why are you bringing your vendettas into an educational environment? You mean you just threw away an entire year of Defense Against the Dark Arts for the students so that you could be like, haha, I was right. And like, Trelawney has had a few correct predictions, but when she's not currently in Oracle mode, she doesn't know what she's doing. So are you just not teaching anybody divination? I have some real questions about Dumbledore's ability to run a school. I don't know if he took like some kind of administrative test to confirm that he should be able to do this job, but like, he's bad at it. And like, I don't want to side with Umbridge or anything, but that's a bad place to go. But like, when she comes in and she's like, the school is badly run. I mean, kind of. But so many of the professors are really bad at their job. And Dumbledore just brings them in arbitrarily because they're good people or because he has a personal vendetta against them. What are you doing, Dumbledore? What's the plan? I don't think I said this yesterday when I was complaining about Snape, but another point to my Snape rant is that if a teacher is a student's worst fear in a world where the amount of scary shit that exists in Harry Potter exists, that professor should be fired, and we should not be informing the professor. I know that no one, like, told him intentionally and it was rumors and whatever, but if a professor hears that he is a student's worst fear, he should not take that opportunity to further bully a student. That's not a safe environment to be in for students. I've been reading this stuff also about Snape making everyone write essays about how to kill werewolves so that Lupin would have to sit and read an essay from the son of his school best friend about how best to kill him, and I want to throttle Severus Snape. He's such... Words escape me when in the face of Severus Snape's remarkable assholery. It's just fucking ridiculous that we are expected to forgive everything that he does because love, and he was just playing a part. No. Bullying children is not part of playing a part. And I was bullied in school. I was bullied a lot when I was like in middle school. In middle school, I was fairly intensely bullied, and I promise you, as an adult, I am not still all consumed with the idea that I have to ruin my high school bully's life, let alone ruin the lives of my high school bully's friends. Like, I'm a mature person who, by the time I got to high school, was like, wow, that was some bullshit, but I'm just gonna never think about that bully again, and then we'll all be better off, because I grew up. I am an adult, and Snape is a piss baby. So this book is actually the first time where we get peeks at least Cedric Diggory. I haven't gotten to the Ravenclaw match yet, so I don't know if we get any kind of idea of what Cho Chang is like, but I'd just like to say that Cedric is such a good dude. Like, he wins the Quidditch match because Harry falls off of his broom after being descended upon by Dementors. And instead of taking that win, which even Oliver Wood is like, no, perfectly within your rights, that's absolutely fair, Cedric still tried to call off the match, wanted a rematch because he thought it wasn't fair. And he's such a good dude, and I'm so angry about what Cursed Child did to him as a character, because he's the most fair, level-headed man.
not man, he's a boy, and he will remain a boy, because he's gonna die in a year. So yeah, I really love Cedric Diggory. He's a sweetheart, and I'm really sad for him and his life. This is like a book of tragic people, because you've also got Sirius, who clearly just wants to be a godfather to Harry, and spends a lot of money, or I guess probably steals a broom, now that I think of it, but like, got him a really good gift, even though he's on the run and Harry hates him. He's still got him a great Christmas gift, and you've got Lupin, who is trying to teach Harry Patronus charms, and every time Harry tries a charm, he tells Lupin a little bit more about the night that James and Lily died. And imagine not being able to, like, admit how horrible that is to hear. How horrible it is to hear about how your best friends were killed, how they begged for their lives, how James sent Lily off on her own because he was desperate to give her a few more moments before she died. Like, imagine having to hear that and not being able to acknowledge how close you were to those people. I imagine having to hear this many years later what James's last act was. You know, your best friend who's been dead for 12 years, and you just barely have to find out and maintain some level of calm that he tried to take on Voldemort one-on-one to give Lily and Harry a little extra time. It's so upsetting. Although, on the comical side of things, Lupin is hysterically bad at hiding that he knows Sirius Black. Literally, the first thing that happens when Harry's like, hey, you know Sirius Black? Lupin throws his briefcase off a desk and has to scramble to pick it up because he is not a chill person. And then later on, when Harry is like, hey, if you knew my dad, then you probably knew Sirius in school. Lupin's like, why would I know that? Huh? What's going on? I don't know anybody. I've never met a person in my life, so, like, he's so, it's, buddy, the drama, like, it's tragic, but to me, it's just hysterical, because to me, Lupin and Sirius were clearly in a relationship, like, they were clearly dating, and J.K. Rowling can't stop me, and never will, so, like, your high school boyfriend killed some people, and now you're trying to play it coy. Who? I don't even know. Whatever. My name is not anything that you need to know about, and I have never had friends. Buddy. Shame it doesn't come with a parachute in case you get too near a Dementor. Pity you can't attach an extra arm to yours, Malfoy, said Harry. Then it could catch the snitch for you. I know it's a very serious scene, but the scene in which Lupin walks in and the Marauders map is insulting Snape, and he's like, huh, I wonder where he would have gotten that. Probably a joke shop. Anyway, time to go. It's totally fine. And Harry's like, well, why did it seem like Snape knew exactly who made this map? And Lupin's like, who knows? Great question. You have to be more. It's so funny. It's so funny how, like, legitimately Lupin always is very obvious about the fact that he's trying to think his way out of situations, and it feels very reflective of the good kid who knows disruptive kids in school, and, like, every time his disruptive past comes back to haunt him, he's like, why wasn't I just a good kid? Like, I wouldn't have to deal with this shit if I'd just not been friends with troublemakers, and, I'd give my life for them, but, like, it just always feels like he becomes 15 years old again when a Marauders issue comes up, because he's like, I'm an adult, but I don't know how to deal with this. No one gave me an adult class on how to deal with being faced with the repercussions of your asshole teenage self in a professional setting. If there is an element of this book that I truly regret didn't get, like, its full measure of adaptational value, it's the fact that it seems like Sirius and Crookshanks were, like,
legit pals, and I think that's hysterical. That's gotta be weird if you're an animagus and you can befriend other animals. Like, what does that mean? But also, I think it should have been a point of bonding for Hermione and Sirius, that he could be like, oh man, your cat's so cool. Here are all of the cool facts about Crookshanks that I learned in our time hanging out. It's just a shame that we didn't get the full measure of that in an adaptation. Another thing that I'm sad about, like adaptation-wise, in less of a joking sense, is I feel like we don't get quite the full picture of who McGonagall is as a person, because in the movies she's very strict, but she has a lot of heart. But because she's a side character, you don't get to see her built up as much as she is in the book. So, like, you never really get that bit in Deathly Hallows when Harry risks his life when he has the energy and the passion to perform an unforgivable curse because someone has disrespected McGonagall. You don't understand that build-up because you haven't seen that relationship develop. But a thing that I don't think you get as much of is the passionate side of McGonagall, the competitive side of McGonagall. In the first movie you get kind of a feel for the fact that she cares about the Gryffindor Quidditch team, but like, she is a die-hard fan of her house. She lives and breathes with their failures and their triumphs, and like, her crying at a Quidditch match is a big deal because it shows how much love and respect she has for those people who have played that game of Quidditch. The fact that she gets competitive with the other heads of house over who's going to win the Quidditch Cup is a significant part of her character, and the fact that she really honestly respected the students that she had who were intelligent, even if they were a different kind of intelligent. McGonagall loved the Marauders. She thought that they were incredibly bright, beyond their years, and even now that they're gone, she still respects that element of them. Which is why I think it's funny that there are all of these, like, headcanons about McGonagall. Like, the day she finds out that there is a student coming to her school who is a mixture of Potter and Weasley blood, that's the day she hands in her resignation. Because, like, she could give as good as she got, and she appreciated intelligence, even if they were little dumb shits about it sometimes. I don't know, it's just an element of McGonagall that I'm sad that you don't get to see as much of, because I really, really adore her as a character, and there are just so many elements of different characters that happen in the books that you don't really get the full measure of because it's impossible to, but the depth of those characters is honestly incredibly brilliant. And I also really respect McGonagall because she's one of the only women in the series who isn't ever, like, redeemed or made good by the fact that she has children or even a husband. Like, J.K. Rowling can say whatever she wants outside of the books, but I don't give a shit. And McGonagall never needed either of those things to become a respected, loving member of Wizarding Society. And I think that that is a big deal, and I think that that is what makes her remarkable as a character. Ron, however, spoke to Black. "If you want to kill Harry, you'll have to kill us too," he said fiercely, though the effort of standing upright was draining him of still more color, and he swayed slightly as he spoke. Something flickered in Black's shadowed eyes. "Lie down," he said quietly to Ron. "You will damage that leg even more." "Did you hear me?" Ron said weakly, though he was clinging painfully to Harry to stay upright. "You'll have to kill all three of us." There's the Ron that I know and love. The book Ron. The Ron who immediately elicited a feeling in Sirius Black of what it was like to have friends at school who would die for you. I love it. I just want to take a moment again to talk about how incredibly intelligent the Marauders are, because it feels like they're played up as jocks, like dumb jocks who are troublemakers, and I think that that's something that Fred and George get a lot too, and I think it's so frustrating because each of those people have pulled off incredible feats of magic far beyond their years. It's just that they use it in silly ways, and so that intelligence is written off. But in particular, the fact that 3 Hogwarts students were able to become unregistered animagus in order to help their friend at a very difficult time in his life is remarkable. I believe Hermione says there are only 7 registered animagus, or animagi? Why can't I think of the plural of that? That century. So it's rare and difficult magic for adults to do, and for 3 students to have pulled it off is incredible. Lupin says that Peter was helped by Remus and Sirius. She's standing on my knee so that she can get scratches, by the way. But yeah, Lupin says that Peter would have had help from James and Sirius because he wasn't as advanced. But not only did they perform that feat of magic, but then they created the Marauders map, which is a very complex bit of magic as well. And also I'd like to say that I don't understand a world in which McGonagall didn't know what they were doing, like as one of the only people aware of the details and the nature of how to perform that bit of magic. I don't know how you wouldn't be able to tell that 3 boys in your own house were doing a months-long thing to become something you've already become. The only proof that I have is that McGonagall would have said something to Dumbledore about Sirius being able to turn into a dog, but honestly, I don't understand how she wouldn't have known. Maybe that's headcanons, like Tumblr headcanons influencing me, but I don't get it. And yeah, I love Sirius and Remus, and they were desperately in love, and I will not hear a word against it. Oh, my scraunchy girl. My scraunchy girl who wants attention until she's given attention, and then she doesn't want attention anymore. Is that the case? Oh, yeah.
Well, I went ahead and had my first reread cry. I've been doing fairly well, all things considered, up to this point, but the tragic nature of the scene where Sirius asks Harry to come live with him overwhelmed me, as it does every time that I reread these books, because each of them finally had a chance to live a thoroughly happy life. And it's horrible to read that knowing just how severely that is going to be taken away from them. It's so much. It's so much when you have Remus and Sirius calling each other by their old school nicknames, and Harry saying there's nothing that he'd like more than a chance to live with Sirius. It's just a lot. I love reading that scene because it's so sweet, and it comes on the tails of a scene where everyone is loudly and firmly declaring that they would give their lives for their friends, that Sirius and Remus would give their lives for their friends, that Ron and Hermione would do the same, that Harry knows about the loyalty of all of these people and he would do the same for all of them. It's just such a beautiful and remarkable scene of love. And to have on the tails of all that a scene where Sirius is so unsure of himself, a man who has spent, a third of his life in prison for a crime he didn't commit. He had to spend that third of his life in prison dealing with the grief of 2 of his closest friends, to the point that when, Hermione calls him Mr. Black, he's so completely stunned by it, because when he went to jail, he was 21 years old. He was younger than I am now. And, it was a weird year when I was 21, for a lot of reasons. But I remember being 21 and first having the thought, this is how old James and Lily Potter would have been when they died. And 21 is a very different age and feeling when you read the books at 12 than it is when you're in your 20s and you realize just how short their lives were. So yeah, I've had my first cry. That's the point. That's the thing I wanted to say. That I shed my tears over Sirius.
and Harry because they had a shot at happiness, and it's about to get taken away. Brutally and terribly. And the rest of Sirius's life is not that long, and the 2 years leading up to it are not that great. And it's tragic. You know what's wild is that Hermione, because of this book, is incrementally older than she was, and I would love to hear if someone has done the math on this, because Hermione was regularly reliving hours of her day, which, I mean, it means that she's older, I would say, by, not a ton, but enough that it's, weird that her birthday is still her birthday, but she is effectively older than that because she has been reliving days. And that's so weird. It's so weird that they allow that to happen. I don't understand. I don't understand how some, wizard nerd came up with the idea of time travel and was like, wow, this seems like a really risky thing that we're trying out. What is one way that we could make time travel super lame? And another wizard was like, I have an idea, let's only use it for more school. It's so interesting how the wizarding world works. Snape is such an asshole. He's such an asshole. And Dumbledore's an asshole too, but he's a lovable asshole a lot of the time. When he's laughing to himself when everyone else is like, how could this have gone wrong? And Dumbledore's off to the side just being like, who's to say? He's still being an asshole, but it's an enjoyable thing that he does. Snape is a straight up asshole. Because, he effectively outs Lupin. That is his form of repaying what he feels he is owed. I don't like that werewolves in this series are effectively a metaphor for HIV. I don't like it because the coding of that is really messed up. The fact that there is a werewolf who specifically targets children is really messed up because it is implying the same sort of feelings about gay men that many people had, that they would specifically target young boys. The amount of times that Lupin emphasizes that parents wouldn't be comfortable with a werewolf teaching their children. Again, it's all tied back to this fear of someone with a blood disease shouldn't be around children because they can't be trusted not to hurt them. It's all just very messed up. Even coming down to the fact that there isn't a cure for being a werewolf, but recently they've discovered a thing that if you take it, you are not dangerous anymore, but it's a new invention. I don't know, it's all really messed up. And so to have all of that coding and then to have Snape just walk up to the Slytherins and be like, whoops, I accidentally told you all that he's a werewolf and now he'll never work again, is so messed up. And not only is it messed up, but later on, I think it's in Order of the Phoenix, you find out that Umbridge was part of a task force that created new anti-werewolf laws that made it effectively impossible for werewolves to find employment, and you can be damn fucking guaranteed that that piece of law was put into action because members of the Ministry found out a werewolf was teaching at Hogwarts. So registering werewolves had to become a thing, and that happened because Snape was being a little bitch boy. And Lupin even says to Snape, is all of this really worth it for a schoolboy grudge? And it's completely valid that he says that because Snape doesn't just ruin one life, he ruins lives of werewolves everywhere. And they're not all Fenrir Greyback. There are plenty who are probably like Lupin, and they never... their chances of living a normal life are taken away. It's just infuriating. It's infuriating that Snape gets to act like a 13-year-old while 13-year-olds are expected to act like adults, and that we're supposed to forgive Snape for all that he's done, and we're not supposed to forgive 13-year-olds
Like, this is gonna be part of my discussion later on about how redeemable Draco really is, how many signs we really get that he is a character that maybe doesn't necessarily want to be doing what he's doing, but I think it's so interesting that J.K. Rowling insists on demonizing Draco, insists on him being a bad person, when for most of the book he's a child. And she also insists on Snape always being a good person, despite the fact that for almost every single bit of the book, we just see Snape being vindictive and cruel as an adult. It's really messed up. That is how I feel about that. I hate Snape. Godfather, sputtered Uncle Vernon. You haven't got a godfather. Yes, I have, said Harry brightly. He was my mum and dad's best friend. He's a convicted murderer, but he's broken out of wizard prison and he's on the run. He likes to keep in touch with me, though. Keep up with my news. Check if I'm happy. That is my favorite conclusion to any Harry Potter book. There are still notes in my copies from the last time I reread these, and so they're just there every now and then, and I'd like to say that past me underlined with pen and starred that line. I love it so much, and nothing has changed. It is the perfect conclusion to this book. So I absolutely loved rereading Prisoner of Azkaban. It was a super awesome time. It is very possible that this book is going to be my new favorite book. I haven't decided yet, but I absolutely loved rereading this book. There is so much in this story that I love. The introduction of the Marauders is something so special to me. The creation of those characters is something so special to me, and I love the time travel in this story. I love the development of Hermione and Ron as individual characters, their strengths and their weaknesses, the ways that they fight and the ways that they make up again. And I'm in love with Remus Lupin and Sirius Black. They are characters I adore. This is also a book where you start to see the adults as people, which hasn't really happened in the previous two books. Like in Sorcerer's Stone and Chamber of Secrets, professors are professors. They don't really have inner lives. They are just sort of there to hold up the structure and to have like reasons why students can't go places. I love this book because it starts to flesh out the adults as characters, as players in Harry's story, as players in Harry's life, and it starts the theme of adults in Harry's life letting him down, which I think is a very important theme going forward. So I also really, really love it for that. Like I said, this is my favorite movie. I think it's a brilliant movie, not just a brilliant Harry Potter movie, a brilliant movie, period. And I think it's a little hard to separate the film from the book because I've watched Prisoner of Azkaban so many times, but there is something still that's so special about Prisoner of Azkaban as a story to me, and so I loved rereading this book. Thank you so much if you have been watching my Harry Potter vlogs. I hope that you've enjoyed this third installment, this reread of Prisoner of Azkaban. Hopefully you have some thoughts that you'd like to share as well. Please do that in the comments below so we can talk more about this story, about this book. And other than that, thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed, and I will see you in another video very soon. Bye!